Welcome to Florida Focus, a college football podcast. We have a lifetime Florida State Seminole fan, that's me, Brandon, and a lifetime Florida Gator fan, that's my co-host, Chris, putting aside our differences to bring you the fantastic world of college football throughout the Sunshine State. Today we'll give you our instant reactions to all of the bowl announcements, maybe dive into some predictions, give you a brief idea of what we think of the playoff and how the teams around the Sunshine State will fare in their bowl games. So, how you feeling about today's show, my friend?
Good. Always a fun time when the bowls are released, and now it's another wrinkle, an even more exciting time that they release the playoffs as well.
Sure. I think it's something where I guess ESPN and or all of the other college football outlets say, we need to draw this out as long as possible.
Yeah.
So that part's frustrating, especially for covering the state of Florida. You're like, okay, playoff announcement at 12 noon. Okay, it's actually 12:30, and
right.
Actually, we don't find out till 3 o'clock all of the other games. So
yeah,
it kind of sucks your day.
They don't really tell you that up front either. They kind of just, by the way, I know you're here for this one thing. You have to wait 3 hours.
Exactly. So, in the case of the state of Florida, we were waiting on 2 picks because we were confident the Florida Gators would probably get a New Year's Six bowl. They did, and we knew with 100% certainty that UCF would. So.
Yeah.
I guess we'll just start with the Gators. That's kind of our format anyway. So they match up against the Michigan Wolverines in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. We kind of assumed Atlanta would take an SEC team. What are your initial thoughts on that matchup?
Michigan is one of those teams that have had our number, man. They really have. So initially I'm like, oh, here we go again. But maybe, the fourth time's a charm?
Yeah.
They beat us. I believe they beat us 2 previous bowls, and they beat us last year, first game of the season. So initially, I'm like, I don't know if I want to play them again. And I'm very curious to see how they're going to respond to just getting whooped by Ohio State. They've traditionally had a pretty decent defense with so offense, but now they seem like they found their quarterback. So in Patterson, and yeah, I think a lot of people are going to pick Michigan to win, and we'll get the picks later on.
Right.
So, and I see why they would be the favorites, and why they would pick this. And Florida, I think it's a good matchup. I think our defense can match up against them. I think it's going to boil down to turnovers and can we get some push on the running game. Okay. I know Michigan's got a pretty good defense, so that's really what it's going to come down to. But yeah, initially I'm like, here we go again. I want something else. But I'm ecstatic that we are in the top 10. I'm ecstatic that we are in a New Year's Six bowl. So I don't know the last time we played a Peach Bowl. But it's really cool just the fact that we're here talking about this. And even if we go out there and stink it up, I'll be happy just because from no bowl to this in 1 year, it's a pretty good feeling.
Oh, okay. That's a good take. And I like what you mentioned about Michigan coming off the big loss. Their season is bookended by pretty putrid performances, and then the 10 in the middle, you're like, okay, they can't lose. And as you mentioned, the defense, I think it's one of the top 3 in the nation.
Yeah.
It's really, they deserved a bowl like this. So I actually found out today, and I was closely following, okay, how do they seed? How do they determine locations? Michigan ended up 7 in the committee's poll. Georgia had the automatic tie into the Sugar Bowl at 5. Ohio State had the automatic tie-in with the Rose Bowl at 6. So Michigan was the highest ranked New Year's Six remaining team. So because they were the remaining seed that had the highest ranking, they got the bowl game closest to them.
Oh, okay.
So Atlanta is closer than Glendale, Arizona.
Right.
So they also said they factored in the choice for UCF in the Fiesta Bowl that UCF was in the Peach Bowl last year, and they try not to duplicate the same bowl in back-to-back seasons.
Okay.
So not the location favored any team. LSU is going really far to travel to play in that one too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Atlanta's not too far from Gainesville.
No, not at all.
So, yeah.
How about that?
Didn't work out for them
Nope.
as much.
But, you look at this matchup, and you're absolutely right. Going into the season, Your prediction, I think, was 7-5 for Florida, which is pretty fair. I think I had them 8-4. To go 9-3, and it ends up being that every loss they had was to a ranked team, and they beat some really good teams that were ranked as well. It's a good spot for Florida. Yeah, you got to watch out for Michigan's defense. That's their strength, and their offense. It can be stagnant, but they control the ball really well, and they run the ball very effectively. Yeah, I think the one area that clearly goes to Florida is special teams, and so I like to see if Mullen can get all three facets of the game going, which has been the question all year. Right. If so, they make it very, very close.
Yeah, I don't want to get into I don't know if we're doing picks right now or not, but my initial lean is Michigan. I think a lot of people's initial lean is Michigan. That's my initial thought, but that's not where I'm settling just yet.
Yeah. Well, we'll let the fans know this. We're planning on doing later this week a full season recap of the Florida teams, and we're going to go in depth on what we were right on, what we were wrong on, and how the season played out. Yeah. And then next week, you can expect a full-blown bowl game preview, and that's when we'll give the predictions. So I think initially you have some spot-on analysis there, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah. I mean, also, too, another thing you have to factor in is we haven't heard about it yet, but probably not going to happen with Florida. But now that some players opt to skip the bowl game to, save themselves for the draft.
Yep.
Who knows? This might happen. I haven't heard about it yet, and I doubt any Florida players will. But I don't know about Michigan players. I think a D lineman of theirs just announced today that he's out for the game. I think with an injury, so that's going to be a huge factor.
Okay.
As well.
That's the biggest question now that trend was set. Fournette of LSU.
Yep.
And McCaffrey. I'm blanking. Where did he go to school? Was it Stanford? Yeah.
Stanford.
Thank you. This only was something that started like 4 or 5 seasons ago, and I'm torn on this. To be completely honest, part of me is like, you should want to go out and play, but the other part of me is like, I've never played, and the school is not going to pay them multiple $1 million to play this one game.
Yeah.
They have to take care of their families, think about their future. So
yeah, and it's one of those things that I'm not in their position. Mm-hmm. I can't really blame them. But the fan in me who just watches is like, just play for my team. But I can't get really mad at them if they want to look past one game, like you said, not just themselves, but a lot of them want to take care of their families as well.
Right.
But that's why I really don't want to make my decisions just yet. I want to see if any news coaching changes happen. Any of these players want to opt out of the game, then I'll probably pick later.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, there's a carousel going full force right now that coaches are getting let go left and right, and we already know Gardner Johnson is heading to the NFL, so that would certainly affect the Gator defense.
He's going early. I don't know if he's skipping the game yet. I don't think he.
Maybe that comes out next week. Maybe there's no decision and he plays. That'd be great too.
Yeah.
All right. So that's the Peach Bowl. That is December 29th, I believe, which is Saturday.
Yeah.
12 noon, Atlanta, Georgia. Let's go over to some other Florida teams here. We'll save UCF for last.
Okay. Are you saying the best for last? Is that what you're getting at?
They are the best in Florida, right?
Technically.
I don't think there's any way you can say they're not.
Yeah, I know. That's the Gator fan in me.
The Miami Hurricanes get a bowl game against Wisconsin in the Pinstripe Bowl.
Yes.
So I think this is funny for 2 reasons. Obviously, number one, it's a rematch of last year's Orange Bowl.
Yeah.
Where Miami did not show up. And second of all, it's in cold weather, which Miami's not used to, and Wisconsin is.
Yes, that's right.
So Miami, of course, a disappointing season. Both of these teams started the year in the top 10. And now they both end with 4 or 5 losses, whatever it is, and just very big disappointment. So what are your thoughts on the Canes going up north?
Playing in the first annual Disappointment Bowl. Yeah, that's a really good point. But it's in New York, right? Are they playing? Is it in
Yankee Stadium? Yeah.
Right. Okay. I didn't think about that, but you're right. Us Sunshine State teams usually don't fare too well in the cold.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real good point. And I haven't watched too much of Wisconsin. I have followed a lot of Miami, and it's all about the matchups. Can they get a team that is bad against the run? Will Wisconsin stop the run or not? That's really what it comes down to. And then the great equalizer often is turnovers, which Miami is pretty good at, causing them. But what will they do with them? We'll see.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see a whole lot of turnovers from Wisconsin. They've always controlled the ball well. They've always had good offensive line play, and they got one of the best running backs in the country in Jonathan Taylor. So it's going to be really tough to get over that. But if you can force them to pass somehow, if you can get them to commit a lot of penalties, and maybe, like you said, turn the ball over, which we know they do really well when they're on their game, then they could run away with it. The only question for Miami would be the quarterback play, which seems to be the question for the last 2 months for the Canes. Yeah,
this is a really big game for the Hurricanes and Rick too, because doing what they did last year and just laying a couple of eggs this year, I should say, and especially ending the year they did just sputtering, but then you finally get a win against Pitt, a dominating win. You're really going to need this game if you really want the program to continue to go in the way that they want it to go.
It's a good take. I like that. It's amazing that he continues to recruit well, despite the X's and O's not being there. And that's my fear with Willie Taggart, if you're not careful. So, let's keep an eye on that. So, all the best. FIU plays Toledo in the Bahamas Bowl.
Yeah. This is not far at all from FIU.
Yes, a lot of cruise ships leave from Miami and go right over the Bahamas. You can be there in just a couple of hours.
Right.
Going at cruise boat speed, which isn't fast. So, nice little fun trip. And I kind of like that this is kind of a destination game they added a few years back. Gives the players, a little something extra to have fun with and, I don't know, learn a little culture while you're at it.
Yeah, true.
Toledo, they've had their moments in the MAC, and, they're there for a reason. But as I said previously, I like what Butch Davis has done in Miami. And, pause up. Initially, I would think that FIU would be favored in this game.
Yeah, I would say so too. I think it's going to probably be a high-scoring game, a fun one. Toledo can really put some points up, but you'd think FIU exceeding expectations this year and playing really close to home. You probably have to go them.
Right. So, good for them. 8 wins on the year. Could get a 9th win. Didn't think I'd be saying that about FIU, so good.
Right.
Florida International, going strong. All right, and then we have South Florida is playing against Marshall in the Gasparilla Bowl.
What is Gasparilla? Is that a place? What do they sell?
I want to say lawnmowers, and I could be very wrong on this, but...
It sounds like some kind of disease. I would just want to stay away from that bowl, you would think. But I don't know. I guess I'll look it up. Every year you get a handful that change sponsors and you never heard it before.
Yeah, I mean this year you have the Red Box Bowl. So
right.
And that was San Francisco, and then it was a bunch of other different names.
Right.
So yeah, good for them. This is in Tampa, so I would say the Tampa Bay area. I can't remember if it's actually in Raymond James Stadium or it's in St. Pete where the Rays play baseball, which is still about 35 minutes away. Either way, it's a very, very, very much a home game.
Yes.
For the Bulls. So, the Bulls finished losing 5 in a row. I've had my doubts all year that Charlie Strong actually stays, so I'm not even sure he's at South Florida by the time this game is played. But by the way, there's been no rumors or anything that he's leaving. I know he's probably the top candidate at Louisville since Jeff Brom decided not to go.
Right.
I would think that we're going to find out some with that in the next few days. But I don't see a whole lot of hope for the Bulls in this one. And I'm being honest when I say that. I'm not even sure that their opponent is much better than them. But I have no reason to think that the Bulls show up for this game, and they do the American Conference a great disservice if they don't show up.
Yeah, I agree. I was looking at this, I was like, why? What do they have to play for? So say Strong is there, they're not playing good, right? They're not. They just got they they lost to the big war in I-4 after losing several games prior to that. But if Strong is gone, hey, what do you have to play for? Our coach isn't there. So, yeah, I'd be shocked if they pulled out a victory or even played good in this game.
Yep. Okay. So we'll see as the week goes forward if they figure out quarterbacks or, if they can keep their running game going and have some kind of attack or push with the front line. That keeps you in a game, and you can control and manage down and distance. So, right. Initially, though, it looks like a lot of the steam has come out of the engine.
Right, yeah.
So
absolutely.
All right. And then the last Florida team being a bowl game, the UCF Knights are going to be traveling to the desert to play in the Fiesta Bowl against LSU. So if you want to annoy college football fans, you can say this is Central Florida versus Louisiana State.
Yes, there we go.
Just don't do that. Central Florida is not a moniker the Knights go by, just UCF. If you want to spell out an acronym, go with University of South Florida. Florida Atlantic, Florida International. UCF is just UCF. Anyway, it's like baseball. The Oakland A's are never called the Oakland Athletics. They'll just look at you weird.
Yeah.
So I really like this matchup. LSU's favored by 6. Not that matters.
Right.
UCF was the underdog in both of their other Fiesta Bowl and Peach Bowl victories. So you know a little more about the SEC since you followed it your entire life. What is your thought on an LSU team taking on the Knights?
I've said this before. Which LSU team is going to show up? They have a really good defense. Always had a good running game. I will say this though, that they saw them start off the year thumping Miami on the big stage. Sometimes they come out on these bowl games at the beginning of the season and just play lights out. But if for some reason LSU is up by a lot early, don't count UCF out. I've learned one thing this year. No matter what happens to UCF, no matter how many points they're down, don't count them out. This is classic great offense versus great defense. One thing that LSU is real good at is playing a tough physical game for 4 quarters. I think teams like Memphis and other opponents of UCF, they can play good for a half, but can they play a whole game of good quality football? LSU's used to that. So I'm excited to see what this game's going to look like in the 4th.
And I think that the Knights have a lot to prove here. You go against a 2-loss LSU team. They had a win over Georgia. They had a Florida game that's really close, so that's a good opponent. And their only other loss was 8 overtimes against Texas A&M.
Yeah. No.
So they're resilient. They can play with anybody in the country. They've had a couple of questionable games. You're like, LSU Auburn, is a rival, and it comes down to the last kick. But Auburn proved not to be a good team this year. And there's some other questions. You had mentioned the players sitting out. It sounds like there's going to be 1, maybe 2 LSU people that may do that. And so that'll impact how the game is played. But you're right with the coming out of the gate playing strong like they did against the Canes, like they've done against other big-name teams. And other games, you're like, okay, they just disappeared. Forgot to get off the bus. I don't know.
Yeah.
So the point difference with UCF, absolutely. Namely Memphis. When you get down a lot, you shouldn't worry, I suppose. Not that the UC fans didn't worry. They certainly did. But you're down 17 points twice to Memphis,
right,
and you're just getting gashed. And they figured it out. They outscored Memphis 35-3 in the second half. They go on to win the game by 15. Such a swing. It's crazy. We put on the Twitter account Saturday that this is the 25th game in a row UCF has scored 30 points at least, and 25th game in a row, they've had at least 1 turnover. That's the success right there. Positive turnover ratio and then controlling the clock. And this is a game where they had 700 yards of offense.
Right.
So, UCF's offense versus LSU's defense is going to be a great thing to watch. And even if you're not like a huge fan of these teams or don't know, just watch the lines on these games. UCF's offensive line can get a great push. and so can LSU's defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
So you won't be bored watching this game, trust me.
Yeah. LSU's defense, especially like you said, the line is a defensive line that UCF has not seen all year. But I think some of their receivers are pretty athletic and athletic like you've seen in the SEC. So LSU has to be careful of that. And Mac, he fumbled a couple times there, but he's really talented. He is a really talented quarterback, especially for a freshman. And anytime you have a mobile quarterback that's going to give any defense somewhat trouble. But I think what it really comes down to is LSU going to be as motivated enough as UCF? Because UCF, this is essentially their, hate to say it, their championship game.
Mm-hmm.
It's not LSU's championship game. It's a bowl game for LSU. Can Coach O get them, fired up and as excited about this game? And they're going to be excited. Don't get me wrong. They're going to be excited, but can they match that intensity as UCF will undoubtedly have?
Yeah, and I see no reason why whoever plays UCF in a bowl game isn't fully prepared now. I understand there's a little bit of disappointment not in the national championship or not in the SEC title game or whatever it may be. But, it's still a question, surprisingly. And not just SEC, but other schools as well. If you haven't lived up to expectations and you're in a bowl game like this, I mean, it's hard to say that's a consolation prize. But it's for some schools, you expect so much more. How do they react and how do they play it out?
Yeah. I think if any team that in the SEC, outside of Alabama, that can on any given day beat any team, LSU's that, because they play a lot of. Obviously, they play in the West, SEC West, but they've played a lot of big games early in the season. They've put a lot of big teams in the bowls in the past, so they're used to this kind of atmosphere and this kind of talent.
Okay. All right. Yes, great matchup, and I was kind of hoping that one would happen. I understand we had said a lot of people thought that for a while it would be Florida Gators playing UCF,
right?
And that did not occur. So we have this matchup, and I don't know that LSU's ever played UCF. I have to look that one up and see.
That'll be a good one.
Yep. All right. So there's the Florida teams. I think initially you'd think, okay, starting the season, you probably think about 5 teams in the Florida go to a bowl.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't think it'd be these 5. You would think FIU misses a bowl. FAU, you would think, okay, easy. Yeah, they won 10 games last year. They're going to be in a bowl game. Obviously, Florida State's been in a bowl since 1977. No reason to think they wouldn't be. And given the season that South Florida had last year, you probably think they're back on one as well. But, man, I think preseason I would have had UCF 9 or 10 wins, a shot at the AAC title. Gators 7-5, a bunch of mediocre teams, and then the Miami would have been the team you would think, okay, they're going to come out with a chance to go undefeated. If any team in Florida had one.
Yeah, I don't know. On Miami, I knew they weren't going to be. I mean, they started off pretty good, but I knew they weren't going to. Obviously didn't think they were going to be this bad, but I knew undefeated wasn't going to be a thing for them. But I will. Them and UCF started off higher ranked, and I guess if you're saying they had the better chance to, maybe I'll give you that.
Okay. Yeah, and here we sit. So, all right. Definitely not going to be boring. I'm curious to see if the state of Florida comes out with a winning record, wins at least 3 of these. So.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good point.
I think. Well, we'll do the full brief. What you fans? You just have to wait. We'll give you the full thoughts. I had to stop myself there. So real quickly, we wanted to touch on the college football playoff committee and their selection of the top 4. What were your thoughts, Chris? How did it pan out?
No surprise, 1, 2, 3. And I guess it's one of those, out of the remaining 3, Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma, it's really up to debate and up to interpretation. Like, what's your interpretation? The best team all year overall body of work, maybe Georgia, especially how they beat Alabama. I mean, almost beat Alabama, I should say. Um, but Oklahoma, I think they got it right. I just, if you factor in everything, I think they got it right putting in Oklahoma. They've got they beat every team that they've played. The game they did lose was by a field goal. It's they got some pretty good wins throughout the season. Only one loss. So I think and it's a tough call. It's a tough call, but I think they got it right. But if they put in Ohio State or Georgia, man, it's tough because Ohio State's win against Michigan was so impressive, putting 60 points against them. But then you got to think that loss is the worst out of all the teams. You know that the Purdue lost by as much as they did, so maybe that throws them out. But Georgia, can you say, hey, we're going to put this 2-loss team in the 4th spot who didn't win their conference, and they're going to play Alabama again? Can you say that? Like, can you say that and not everyone flip out, even though they might be the best team? Like,
the answer to that riddle is no. You can't put them in there.
Right.
And
so
that was my opinion.
They have to go with Oklahoma, right?
Yes, absolutely. Georgia. This is the way I see it. They had their chance, and I'm a big Georgia guy. So they already had a playoff game. It was yesterday.
Yeah.
They had a chance to play Bama, and they didn't come out victorious. Although they had a massive lead and had them on the ropes. Flat out, they lost. And I'm just not a guy that likes quality losses. And, there you go. I mean, fine, put them in the 5 spot. That's fine. I don't care. But Oklahoma had the ranked wins and only one ranked loss. Again, I don't like quality losses. But, you have to penalize Ohio State for that Purdue game.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
And you're right. With the Michigan win, that's good. And they still beat Northwestern by 21, which ended up being a ranked team. Again, that's a feel-good story. But, could have won by more. And I can't dismiss a very abysmal Maryland game and a very weak October. I can, though, praise and give Dwayne Haskins the Florida Focus Heisman vote on your behalf. You're welcome. Because I think he was the best player in the nation this year. That's just me. I really do. It was a tough one with him and Tua, but, Tua goes down in the title game, and he wasn't playing well before that. So if this is your biggest game of the season, and that's how you come out, I got to go with the guy who kept Ohio State afloat despite all of those bad defensive performances.
Now, is it a season award or a championship game award? Because Tua was clear frontrunner the whole year.
Yeah.
And you're going to not give it to him just because of one game where he got hurt?
Well, if you're big on the...
I'm playing devil's advocate.
Yeah. If you're big on, okay, what's the Heisman moment?
Right.
Haskins had it every game. Okay, you go with Maryland where your defense has given up all of these chunk rushing yards, and he scores 52 points, which ended up being one enough. You look at the Michigan game, a team that was going to be in the playoff, just totally annihilates them. And Dwayne Haskins has, or at least entering the last week of the season, had just 150 less passing yards than Gardner Minshew, a spread offense with Mike Leach that throws the ball all the time. And he's only 150 yards short of that passing for a team that doesn't spread past the ball. And so, season award. That's why I give it to Haskins.
Okay.
Now, Tua was my close second, and I had him up until the last 3 weeks because of his efficiency, and he just never turned the ball over.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those. I think Haskins. I don't know where I stand just yet. Haskins, I will say, had to win more games. Tua didn't really have to win a game. He was on the best team, and Murray had to win games. But all of them can play though. That's a tough one. And I think they were saying prior to this weekend, like only 10% of the Heisman votes had been cast.
Yep.
And they're everyone's waiting to see. So if they're like you and kind of like, hey, I'm gonna wait to see how game, these games turned out.
Uh-huh.
But my thing is, who watched the Big Ten championship game?
Well, I was coming home from the American because I got to go to see UCF play Memphis, and so I kind of caught it on TV here and there. But Northwestern's just not a big draw, and
yeah, exactly. Like
the problem is,
I think a lot of people watch the Big 12. A lot of people watch the SEC, but outside of say Northwestern, who watched that game?
It might have been a timing issue too, because if you knew, in reality, Oklahoma beats Texas, they're in. Ohio State's hopes were already dashed.
Yeah.
So there's a possibility by kickoff, they already knew, like, okay, well, this is for a Big Ten title and Rose Bowl, but we're not getting in the top 4. Mm-hmm. And so that also could have factored in where people were like, no, I'm just going to skip it. I know how this is going to play out. They're going to win pretty handily. They're going to cover the spread, and Haskins is going to go off. Yeah. But yeah, the opponent didn't help.
Yeah. Oh, now, if you're a Heisman voter, you might actually have tuned in and paid more attention. But,
Sure.
But I don't know. I wouldn't dismiss Tua because of that one game so quick, because he was dominant all year. But Haskins is a beast, and you can make the case of Tua not really having to do too much.
Yep.
So
how about this? Okay, this is how I'll break my opinion down.
Uh-huh.
Tua, best quarterback in the nation. Kyler Murray, best athlete in the nation.
Oh.
Dwayne Haskins, best player in the nation.
Okay. So now we're just everybody gets an award. Okay.
So like, what are the non-trophy, like the Davey O'Brien, all the other ones? Y'all can split those. Go right ahead.
Right.
But and Haskins was clearly the most valuable player on his team.
Okay.
So, there you go. So it should be fun. I think we're recording this Sunday night. Tomorrow night they announce the finalists for the Heisman. And you know what? Since, talking about UCF, I don't see any reason why Mackenzie Milton shouldn't get an invite for this. If there's no limit on how many guys you can send to New York. One year they sent like 6 or 7, I think.
It would be a nice, just feel-good story, just to considering how he ended the season.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he really only misses out on 6 quarters of play, and he wins the American Offensive Player of the Year for the second time in a row. I mean, this guy has 79 touchdowns in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
That's impressive. And not all of those are passing. A lot of those are rushing, too. So, I don't know that they will. It might be, a courtesy kind of thing. But, Mackenzie Milton's going to be out for a long time. So, this is Mac's show going forward.
Yeah.
All right. So, actually, I don't know if I finished the thought on the playoff. I think they got the right 4 teams. I was a little surprised that just other rankings. Michigan finished 7, UCF finished 8. That one was kind of interesting considering UCF was 7 all the other polls, but it doesn't really matter at that point, except if you were talking about the seeding of those bowls, and Michigan got the Peach Bowl. Again, they didn't want to put UCF there again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a moot point now. They weren't in the top 4.
Yeah. Well, I know this last year and maybe the year before, but especially this year, they were all on like the top 6, and then out of the last 3, who's going to get that 4th spot? They made a real big deal about the 6, right? It got me thinking, if you don't want to do 8-team playoff, do a 16 playoff, and the first 2 get a bye.
Right.
We start that, start that, and then work your way to 8, because you're already hyping up the 6. So
they just want to show who was left out, I guess. I don't.
Yeah.
There's been no talk, and even today they reiterated there's no talk of expansion. They're going to keep it at 4 for a very long time.
It's all about the drama.
Oh yeah,
I know.
Yeah. So, okay. Either way, this creates a lot of good bowl matchups. Mm-hmm. And someone made a comment. I didn't even think about this. If you were to think back to the days of the BCS, this would be a year that would not work. If you only put in 2 teams, I mean, it would be Clemson, Alabama for weeks now.
Yeah.
And there would be no reason for anyone else to even care. But you give Oklahoma and Notre Dame a chance to go out and play. Since we don't cover much outside of the state of Florida. I'm just going to go ahead and my prediction is Clemson destroys Notre Dame. That's my one. I really don't know about Bama, Oklahoma. I'll be honest. Oklahoma has lost so much on the high stage. Like eventually they're going to win one, right? And, Bama bled against Georgia, so they're not invincible. Yeah, maybe this is the year they strike. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a really good. Yeah, I agree. Clemson and Notre Dame is nothing. Oklahoma's offense is really good.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how injured Tua is, but even if Tua's out or isn't 100%, Hurts, we can see, is pretty good. I still get the slight edge to Bama just because of Nick Saban.
Sure.
That's the dude knows what he's doing. Give him time; he knows what he's doing even more. I think you're going to see Clemson, Alabama. What number 4 or 5? What are we at now?
17, 18. I can't count anymore.
Yeah.
And you know what? Give it to me every year. I want it.
Yeah,
I want it so bad.
Good stuff.
Even with other quarterbacks that don't have the playoff experience, I want it all the more.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. All right. Well, yeah, that was a kind of a fun instant reaction thing. We didn't put a whole lot of research into this because this is all happening today. But, Chris, I know the fans have plenty of opinions on what we said about the Heisman talk and the playoff and how UCF was shunned and how the state of Florida will do in the bowl. So how can they get in touch with us to get some of their feedback?
All right. There's many ways, starting off with the website, FloridaFocusPodcast.libsyn.com, Libsyn, Labsyn. Facebook and YouTube, Florida Focus Podcast. Twitter, @FloridaFocusPod. Please feel free to email us with your maybe predictions of how the playoffs should go, and if you think they got it right or wrong, at FloridaFocusPodcast@yahoo.com. Hit us up at Snapchat and Instagram, FLFocusPod, and please, if you feel like you want to help us out, hit us up and support us on Patreon.
Excellent. Couldn't have said any better. However you're listening to us, thank you so much. We do appreciate it. On iTunes, if you're there, 5-star rating would help. Give us a review and type out a few thoughts, saying some positives and then some opportunities. We'd really appreciate that as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any last thoughts before we sign off for tonight, Chris?
And now it's the most wonderful time of the year. That's all I gotta say.
Absolutely.
I'm excited for it.
You just never know what you're gonna get, and the month layoff makes it all the more exciting and topsy turvy. So
yeah.
All right. Well, this is Brandon signing off, saying go Noles.
Go Gators.